Town Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. Time is 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next for the approval of minutes, do I have a motion to accept and place on file the minutes from the December 4th, 2023 work session meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes, motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next for announcements, presentations, we have the town manager's update. Mr. Tierney.
Good evening, members of the council, those of you here this evening and those at home watching. First of all, I'd like to wish everyone a very healthy and happy 2024. And a few updates over the last week or so. The town received 4 responses from vendors after publishing the RFQ as directed by the town council for the grant writing services. We'll be reviewing those 4 vendors' responses to determine suitability, and we'll be getting back with the town council after that. Currently, that is not budgeted. The library, the project's moving right along, and the balance on the bridge loan has been reduced again. It currently sits as $114,364,000 with from the original $1.5 million. Myself and some staff members will be attending the annual meeting of the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust later this month. As you know, they provide us support and insurance with the town for many events. The state asked us to just publicize it. The State House, the Independent Man, you can still visit the State House to see the Independent Man before he departs the building to undergo his historic restoration. The statue will remain inside the main entrance of the State House through Friday, January 5th. I was speaking to Michelle today about the congregate meal plan at the community center, and I'd like to report that since the program started in July of 2021, the town has distributed nearly 15,000 meals at the community center. That's amazing. And I'd like to thank the staff and the volunteers that worked to make this a success. That's quite an accomplishment, and it's still successful, and it continues to go on with other special events that they do for the veterans and some other different programs during the holiday season. And I'd like to thank Karen Flint, Michelle Kershaw, Kevin Farrell, Regina Peloso, and some of the other volunteers that assist as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to the open forum public comment portion of our meeting. Again, the comments of citizens addressing the council are neither adopted nor endorsed by the body, but heard as requested. Note that public comment will not be taken on matters involving open litigation. And the rules are, there's a sign-in sheet at the back of the chambers. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and address and speak only on topics not on the meeting agenda. And there is a 3-minute time limit per speaker subject matter. And please be orderly and respectful. Mr. Tierney?
Thank you. Rosemary Smith, Castle Road, and I want to wish you a Happy New Year to all of you and the staff. We're coming up on the 2nd anniversary of the Narragansett Town Council's approval on January 18th on 2022 of a request for a proposal for professional engineering services to determine a safe, buildable alignment for completion of the William C. O'Neill South County Bike Path from the Narragansett Community Center to the Narragansett Town Beach. Selection of the route will enable the town to use up to $3 million in construction funding budgeted in the fiscal year 2022 through 2031 State Transportation Improvement Program called the STIP. The engineering study was awarded to Dupree Engineering on August 3rd, 2022. We understand that Dupree and its subcommittee Paré and Beta have completed the work and delivered a report to the town staff. We urge you to receive the report in January, review the recommendations and public comment in regular council meetings and workshops if necessary, and present a selected route to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation by mid-March. Please bring the completion of the bike path to the front burner, lest the project drag on for another 2 or 3 years. Increasingly, Narragansett is at risk of losing its active transportation program funding to projects in other municipalities as the state undertakes a major revision of the STIP this spring. But more importantly, the ever-increasing vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic in central Narragansett demands a safe and well-marked path from the community center to the beach. And this is proposed by David and Rosemary Smith. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else signed up?
The second person to sign is Dave Avadesian.
Hi, good evening. Dave Avadesian, 87 Woodward Ave. I hope that with some of these decisions that are going to be made tonight, that you seek some input from full-time residents. And how would you define full-time resident? It's someone who gets the homestead exemption. Their opinions may be dramatically different than residents who are very vocal, who drive around with Florida plates, Arizona plates, and other things. These full-time residents are the ones who support your town and send their kids to the school system here. I'd also like to piggyback something Mrs. Smith just said. I hope that that bike path gets continued and it gets done sooner rather than later. I also think that if you continue that bike path and do something about it, it would help with beach access also by allowing people to park at the elementary school and possibly even catch a shuttle via a golf cart or some other light vehicle to the beach if we ever built a bridge over that little brook behind the playground. I got a bunch of ideas here today, sorry. I looked at that survey we got from you guys on natural disasters. I hope that the town would start looking at burying some of these power lines that are what we have going up around town rather than continually fixing them. When you're tearing up streets and doing some remodeling on some of these roads, why not put these lines underground? That would help us in natural disasters. And one of the things that made me think of this was South Pier Road, where we just recently paved some of it. Obviously, the rest of the road needs paving, and I'm sure it will get done. But I also like to see some speed tables get put in South Pier Road and possibly on Kenny Ave. These speed tables are used at URI, they're used in Providence, they're used in Canton, Mass, where I just came from, in local neighborhoods to slow people down. I don't think we need to put police officers there and give people tickets. That only pisses people off. But a simple speed table, fire trucks can get over them. They are not speed bumps. They're totally different. You can see them at URI. And also, Parks and Rec will be here tonight and make many suggestions. I hope you do not make any decisions in a vacuum. While ideas may sound good or bad in front of you right now, what's the history of some of these decisions that's been made since maybe 1980, 1990? Lots of ideas have been tried. Some good, some bad. You'll hear some good ideas tonight, you'll hear some bad ideas tonight. But unless we know the history of some of these decisions, especially impacting what's going on at the beach in this town, we really can't make a decision without some history of other things that have gone on and things that we've tried. So please be cognizant of some of these decisions that we've made in the past and how that impacts the town going forward. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing? Ms. Jarama?
Good evening. Happy New Year. I wanted to talk to you guys again about affordable housing. One of my big interests in affordable housing is not just about the lack of affordable housing, but the future of affordable housing in Narragansett. And one of the things that we, as a town, don't always recognize is that you have to think outside the box and be creative. So one of the greatest things that's happening right now is the library is moving out of their old building. And there's an empty town building in the center of town. Now, I don't think that would be a really effective use of the space for affordable housing, but I think it might make sense to think about moving the town hall into that space, and you would have all your municipal buildings in the same location, the center of town, which would vacate this building, which has required a lot of repairs, a lot of renovations, the ramp. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed in this building, which if you were to think about creating a state-of-the-art, brand-new town hall in the location that is currently the library, this building could be raised and you could get 30 units of affordable housing in a residential area right next to the schools where people could walk. But we haven't heard one mention of what's going to happen to that library building. There have been updates. All year I've been listening. No mentions. So I don't know if that's an oversight or intentional, but something has to happen with that building. And it took 8 years for the library to be done. Is that building going to sit empty for 8 years? Is there a decision being made? These are questions that not only I, but other people want to know. Thank you.
Is anyone else? Last call. Ms. Ciliberto.
Catherine Ciliberto, 48 Earls Court, part-time resident, full-time taxpayer. Okay. I noticed that we've hired a new police officer. Somebody has bid in from Jamestown, I believe. And this person is going to get a $5,000 sign-in bonus. And I'm not a fan of sign-in bonuses, really, and I'm certainly not a fan of people bidding in from other departments. But I think the way this is going to be levied is unfair in a lot of ways. You're going to get a police officer who's coming in December, and yet you just hired 3 kids in May who are working the night shift, and they're not going to get the sign-on bonus. And I don't think that's right. And I know they get a shift differential for working at night, but I think there should be some kind of a look-back period maybe. As far as the $5,000 itself is concerned, people need to be able to live near where they work. And we need to look toward coming up with some kind of incentives so they're able to afford to live in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, moving on to new business. From the town solicitor, we have a motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett entitled Zoning, specifically Section 2.2 entitled Definitions Households.
So moved.
Second?
This is a second reading, so we do not take comment on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay. And I abstain.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. We have three rules, 1 abstention, and 1 nay. Next, from the Parks and Recreation Department, we have a motion to approve the purchase and installation of 12 solar-powered weatherproof speakers at Narragansett Town Beach to be completed by PMA Industries in the amount of $24,685.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council?
I'd just like to congratulate Parks and Rec for moving into the solar arena. It's a really excellent idea, and I really appreciate you thinking about that, Michelle.
Anyone else from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to approve the 2024 Narragansett beach fees per attached schedule and recommended policy changes.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. I'll just kind of go over this one here. So as we all know, the Narragansett Town Beach is one of our 4 enterprise funds in the town. So the enterprise funds means that all the revenues that are generated are using to support the fees, ongoing expenses, long-term capital needs and reserves, and for unforeseen or extraordinary costs that might be incurred. So for Narragansett Town Beach, the revenue is generated via these fees for parking, admission, and rentals of on-site facilities, lockers, changing rooms, and cabanas. There are no tax dollars that go into maintaining the beach, so I just want to be clear with that up front. And we recently had an approved enterprise fund revenue policy. And so the North Beach Clubhouse with this policy is now going to be maintaining a reserve of $4.5 million for the expenses, and that's what was in the optimal range. So we had a committee discussing that. So this past November, we had a workshop, the Narragansett Town Beach Workshop, and so it highlighted that over the past 5 years, the revenue has been essentially flat, and while the expenses have increased, we all know expenses are going up, and the income steadily declining. So all the numbers aren't audited yet, but it's believed that Narragansett Town Beach income for this past year was either break even or worse, maybe at a loss for the operating expenses. So with that in mind, there's the documents that we're going to be discussing, which is the fees. That's going to attempt to show Narragansett Town Beach ongoing operating expense increases and the required capital expenditures over the next 3 years can be offset by the fee increases that have been proposed. So just to go over the goal of the increases, again, it's to maintain the necessary enterprise fund balance at the $4.5 million target, and to review the beach policies every 2 to 3 years. So the recommendations of these fees are, one is to increase the resident taxpayer seasonal parking pass to $75. That's up from $50. This has not been increased since 2011. Number 2 is increase the daily parking to $15 daily, and that's from $10 during the week and $15 on weekends and holidays. So basically, it would be $15 daily. That has not been increased since 2014. Number 3 is to increase the cabana rental fee to $3,000, and that's from $2,500. That has not been increased since 2014. Number 4 is to increase North Pavilion changing room rental fee from to $1,000 that's up from $700, and that also has not been increased since 2014. Number 5 is to increase South Pavilion locker rental fee to $500 from $350. That has not been increased since 2014. Number 6 is to increase the fees to rent the North Beach Clubhouse per the fee schedule that's been attached for in our documents. And again, so as I'm talking about these, it's been 10 years or more since a lot of these have been increased. And then additionally, there's some following policy modifications that have been recommended. Number 1 is close the beach daily at 6 p.m. Currently, we're closing at 7 p.m. And number 2 is open south lot at 1 p.m. weekdays only to non-residents based upon conditions. Number 3 is to establish 2024 as last year for grandfathering non-residents for South Pavilion lockers. Number 4 is develop a subcommittee of advisory board to evaluate policies for cabanas, changing rooms, and lockers for potential recommendations for the 2025 beach season. So that's the summary of the agenda item. So I'll open it up to any comments from our council members.
I just have a suggestion. There are a lot of items that you listed. Maybe if we are going to vote on them or discuss them, we take one at a time. And for an individual,
I was going to just get the consensus of what the council, some of us may be on the same page, some of us may have different objectives or ideas. So I was just going to assess what that is, and then we can either, based on the feedback that we get from the council members, we can either individually do it or do it as a group, in groups for the fee structures.
I can start.
All right, Councilor Kopech.
I'll start by talking about the North Beach Clubhouse, because it was a beach house, wasn't it? I don't have any problem with the increases. I do think that what I don't know, and this is unfortunate because I like to know this piece of information, is if we are, offsetting the costs, if there are funds that result in additional revenue. I don't have any idea what that is. I think that not having raised any of these fees for, I get for a couple of years anyway. I don't know how many years, doesn't quite say. That, we need to always look at that and see if there needs to be increases, and that makes sense to me. So I have no problem with that series of rental fees. I have some concerns about the other beach fees for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that I do when I look at stuff is I go back and I review, there's a capital piece to this, and I went back to look at capital budget recommendations for the past couple of years, and some of the budget information is interesting. One piece is the reserve that we put in place for any kind of disasters or issues on the beach. We agreed to a $1.5 million hold for that, and we actually have been pulling funding into sort of like a different location. It's a different spot in the enterprise fund to make sure that we don't touch that money unless we need it for disaster recovery issues. And what we decided on was $1.5 million, but I think when I look at the actual numbers that we have for the reserves, we haven't considered the fact that we had, we put aside about, I think it was about $1 million last year, and we were scheduled to do $875,000 this year, which we don't need to get to $1.5 million, and there was also $125,000 in the capital budget, $125,000 in the capital budget for next year, which we also wouldn't need. So that actually changes the existing numbers for the enterprise fund in terms of its health. Another thing that I was just a little confused about is on the sheet that we have, it says that the target for 2024 is $4.5 million. What I don't know for sure, I need this clarified. Do we have $4.5 million in that fund now? That's what I need to know.
It's not fully audited yet because there's an extension for another month or two, but it's in the vicinity of over 4.4 million, yes.
Over 4.4, okay.
But that's not the audited amount yet. They're still in the
Right.
process of doing the audit.
Okay, so, but effectively, that puts us, if the audit comes out that way, effectively, we are at the place where we kind of want to be with this fund going forward, which is a really good thing. I'm pleased with that, but I also think we have to take that into consideration when we look at raising, various and sundry fees. The objective here isn't to make money, it's to fund the beach. And so, so our revenue should equal as much as possible our expenses plus whatever we need to make sure that that fund is as solvent as we want it to be. It is currently as solvent as we want it to be, barring anything that might happen. But even if it does happen, we would adjust accordingly because we have a piece of that fund is separated out all the time for not capital and not general expenditures. So I think that's important to know. So my point is that I think that we need to relate that then to the to the actual increases that we're looking at. And that brings another point to mind, which is that there's not a lot of sort of percentage rationale in these listings. The parking fee is raised by 50%, even though it's only $25, it's still 50%, which is a pretty, I'm sure there are people who would find that, a little bit difficult to deal with. At the same time, I am a little surprised that we didn't decide to increase the commercial transferable pass, and I'd like to understand why that was. I'm not saying that it was the right or wrong thing to do, I just don't understand it, so I'd like to know that. I also, so the weekdays, the daily parking weekdays increase from $10 to $15 is a pretty big increase as well overall. And I think that we need to think about whether we want that one to be as increased in that regard. I would make it, if there had to be one, I would make it much smaller, but I'm not sure that we need to do that when you go back and you look at the enterprise fund. So, the objective, I think, for us is to have, a safe beach, but also that we have an affordable beach for our residents, and our guests for that matter, but for our residents primarily. And I want to make sure that we continue to think that way. I also know that there's a little bit of a problem with the way that we have to take in the money. So, I mean, I know that Michelle has spoken before on the fact that, when you have to deal with cash, and the cash isn't like a nice round number, like say 20, you have to be able to make change, and that gets to be very difficult. I really think that the best solution to that would be to just require a credit card. And I know that we have kids who come in and they don't have credit, but every kid I know doesn't use cash for anything. So I think that there's ways for them to have money pulled electronically. So I think that's something that we need to look at, because I think that makes more sense. And it would, and also charge them is it a 3% fee or is it more now for a credit card? Do you know, Michelle?
It's a negotiated fee, but there was a reference
Okay.
made to 2%.
2%, okay. So, I mean, you could tack that right on to the cost of the credit card activity if you wanted to do it that way. It saves a lot of time and effort in a lot of different ways, I think, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Other than that, I think that those are the points that I wanted to make. I think we definitely have to take a look at some of these increases and reconsider them, but I'd really like to hear from the public in terms of all of those things first, because in that regard, I think they know more than I do about it. So that's all I have to say.
Is that all?
Councilor Lawler.
You want me to go next? Oh, Jim's walking away, and we want to ask him a question. So the first one, thought maybe we'd talk a little about this in your presentation, but the storm we just had, there has been quite a lot of damage to the beach, and I'm trying to figure out how much money that is going to, this past storm, which wasn't even really a huge storm, has cost the town, and Michelle's staff is still out there working.
We haven't tallied it up yet. It's still in the process, and some of the repairs with the macadam separating from the wall, we don't have a price on that yet.
Okay. I guess my point is, I know that we brought down the enterprise fund, and I'm not really quite sure, especially with the timing of this storm, if that was the right decision to make. So I just want to put it out there that I don't know that this is a reduction that we need to have. I think having a healthy balance in the enterprise fund, especially with all the changes globally in climate, I think it makes sense for us to maintain a very healthy fund so that the taxpayers don't end up having to pay for it. We need that fund to be there. I'm going to follow Susan's advice. I'm going to go through the schedule here that's in front of us and just kind of give my thoughts on each element. As far as the daily seasonal pass, I agree that we should keep the walk-on pass as is at the $12. Daily parking, it should be noted that during the presentation to the rec board, the director of Parks and Rec had suggested that on weekends and holidays, the parking increase be $20 for the west lot, and then also $20 opening up the south lot at 1 p.m. as she deemed necessary or needed for that purpose. And I do like those ideas very much, because one thing that I did not like with the recommendation was the increased parking fee for the residents for parking from 50 to 75. So I think that the daily parking fee, if we increase it for our guests to $20, will help offset the fact that we should not be increasing our resident taxpayers' passes up. And Michelle, as well as with the west lot, one thing that I would like for you to get back to us with as well, I know there are 172 parking spots in the west lot, and the west lot is currently used for not only for our guest parking, but also for parking for our town employees, parking for concession employees, parking for all sorts of concession employees. So I really want to get a good understanding of how much of that 172 spots are actually being used for employee parking, no matter whose employee they are, and then how much is available for guest parking. Because if we can free up some of that west lot, we can have more guest parking and more people be able to come on and use our beach. Going down to commercial transferable passes, I'd like to suggest that we pull that tonight and that we have some more time to speak to Solicitor Davis about what we can do with the transferable pass. Because I agree with Ms. Kopak that $200 is definitely not enough, but I think we need to get our arms around that a little bit more. In an effort to make sure that we can put back the money by not increasing the $75 parking fee for residents, I suggest that we increase the transferable pass for the residents from $100 to $125. And just to remind everybody that that means that for $125 for the entire beach season, any town resident can bring any guests they want, as many times as they want, onto our town beach. I'm in favor of all of the changes for the cabanas, the north changing room, and for the south lockers. I have spoken with a lot of folks that don't live in town that are in the south locker grandfathering. I agree it was a difficult choice of words calling it grandfathered, but I agree with Parks and Rec saying that this would be their last time. But the one thing that I did note that there is a difference. The residents were increased by $150 this year for their south locker, and there was no increase for the non-residents. And I think that should be the same. I think they should get the same $150 increase so that we have consistency. As far as the North Beach Clubhouse, I agree we haven't raised these fees in a long time. We need to do so. But the one that I saw that I believe we need to change is the very last one that's for 3-hour event prices, where it is nonprofit/town employee for 3-hour events for $300. It should be noted that the residents Monday through Thursday are now being asked to pay $400, and the residents Friday through Sunday are asked to pay $500. So I don't think the town employees should be at a discount of $200 for the town of Narragansett residents, but I do believe that it would be nice to offer them the same price as the residents of Narragansett. So that's my story.
Thank you. Councilor Ferrandi.
Thank you, Eva. Yeah, looking at a lot of these fees, they haven't gone up in quite a while, 2014, 2011. And you ask yourself, we're at the so-called optimal in the balance now, so, why all the increases, right? But keep in mind, there's also plans for capital improvements that the beach needs every year. But I'm in agreement that I think there needs to be an adjustment made to some of this pricing, make it a little fairer. The commercial transferable passes, I believe it's mainly rental houses that probably have that. So, it's almost can be a perk as part of the running a business. So I don't even really know why we need to have those. I guess if we could find what we would lose if we didn't have those, but they'd be buying passes at the beach every day. So I think something could be adjusted there, either increase it or put a limit on them, or just get rid of the commercial transferable pass completely. And then you might get the revenue from the people wanting to go to the beach or driving in that have to pay as they go. Some of the other ones, you look at it as a percentage, it's 42%, some are 20%. Some I can live with the event centers, Canachet, maybe that's not going up as much, so I can understand that, some of that. But the main thing I would say is about the commercial transferable pass to try to eliminate that, so, a lot of people aren't double dipping on making the money on the property for rental and all, even though I know it brings in people and all of that, but they're here anyways, maybe they'll buy the pass. So I'd like to hear what the public also has to say. Thank you.
Councilor Cicely Bonano?
Well, I actually think that the beach enterprise is pretty healthy at $4.5 million. The last council I sat on, we worked really hard not to increase, and I've gone back and forth in my mind, what's best for the residents. I don't look at it as a business. I look at it as a recreational space more than a business. So people from the town, the taxpayers, they use it and love it. I want visitors to come. So philosophically, I think I differ on a lot of these. That's why I originally said one at a time, because thinking about it, I just don't want to burden the residents. I don't agree with the $50 to $75 for 50% increase. I'd like to see the beach closed at 6. I think the lockers and the cabanas could be increased if we want to move it out so it's more friendly for the residents so other people can use them. So it's hard for me to say yes to everything on here, so that's why I'd like to look at one at a time, because I'm not even sure the Park and Rec is unified on the decisions they made, because I had talked to some of the members, and there doesn't seem to be a consensus with the director and the Park and Rec board. So we don't have a lot of information. We do know that it's a place that people come and love, and so we got to get this right. And if we're lacking information or we don't think we're able to get all this done tonight, I think we should study it a little bit, because every council I've sat on, the policies change. People keep saying, why can't they just stay the same? One time the south lot's open to the public after 1, sometimes it's closed. So I think getting consistent, solid policies that work for the town will be helpful. And I think that when we made the decision to look at the way we were dealing with the enterprise, that was helpful, and we capped it. But I think that we have to kind of get it right. It's changed so many times. So I'd like to hear what the public has to say, and I'm basically for not too many increases for the residents.
Okay, I'll just some short remarks here. So we finally have a policy for the enterprise fund. In the past, we didn't know what the enterprise funding should be. There were different ranges, so we're on the optimal level. So it's $4.5 million is what the optimum range is. And so if we look at the document that we have in front of us, the council members, it actually does the 24, 25, and 26. So it tracks, it's what the expenses are going to be per year, and then the capital expenditures and what the proposed fees are. So we're looking, again, we're maintaining our fund. So we're making sure that we cover all the expenses so that we keep it. Right now, as Mr. Tierney mentioned, the enterprise fund is at $4.4 million. So we're wanting to keep it in that range. So the fees that we have to come up with are ones that are going to cover that, including all the, we do have the capital expenditures. So for example, for 2024, we have $300,000 in capital expenditures slotted here. And then the expense increases per year. We know everything's going up. Everything's going up. Labor's got, just to, we've had to increase, everybody's salaries, and, just making sure that we have the great lifeguards that we have. We want to make sure we have the great people there every year. And also just supplies are going up. So with that, the anticipated expenses per year for next year more is $75,000 more. And we talked about how, we're staying flat at the current rates that we're getting for fees. We're staying flat, or, we're not audited this year. We may have lost. And then that means we're not covering the expenses, and that's bad business. Because in the end, this is a business because it's an enterprise fund. It's not taxes going into this to fund this. It's the fees that are funding it. So it's self-sustaining. So that's why we're addressing this right now. And then again, so for 2025, we have, $250,000 in capital expenditures, which we have to incorporate into that, and another $250,000 for 2026 because we go out for the capital funding. And we just, again, need to make sure we maintain that. I spent some time this weekend looking over all the fees. I also support not increasing the daily rates and the resident passes, so that's great. We're not looking to do that. Again, as I was speaking before, A lot of these fees haven't been raised in like 10 years, or like I was mentioning 2011, 2014. I mean, what kind of business doesn't, like, and we want to make sure that, and if we didn't have to increase fees, then we wouldn't be doing that. We're trying to maintain the fund, we're trying to have the healthy balance. We know that number now, which is not some kind of figment, some figure that was just thrown out there. We know, we had the finance committee look at it, we had finance look at it, our finance director, we had a lot of people looking at this, and they came up with that number. So when I was looking at it, again, as some of the council members mentioned, the increases range. Some of them are 43, some of them are 50%, 43, so it's not consistent. So when I was looking at it from the perspective of, fee increases, I wanted to see something consistent. And I kind of came up with the 20% number. So that's kind of what I'm going to throw out there. I am going to listen to what the public has to say. I always listen. But for now, from what I've gathered from my perspective and just being consistent, so just the 20%, for the parking. I do like the consistency in the daily rate for the parking. I know the past council, I mean, I think some of the rates were a lot higher, 2025. This is just $5 for the weekly rate, and that's, again, has not been raised since 2011, so that's a long time. That's pretty much 13 years now that we haven't had a raise in the daily parking rates. Daily admissions staying the same, which is great. Commercial transferable passes and resident taxpayer transferable passes, those weren't increased on this list. Again, if we wanted to keep them or maintain them, I would suggest a 20% increase on that as well. And then the cabanas, that was a 20% increase. And then when we looked at the North Pavilion changing room, that was a higher increase. And so I was thinking of a 20% increase for that, which would, instead of $1,000, be $840. And the South Pavilion lockers haven't been raised since 2014. So something like that, like going from $350 to $420 for the resident and non-resident rate would be $600 to $720. Because we don't know. Last year we had a very rainy season. We don't know. I know every time I had the day off, it was always raining. So we may not have really captured what what the income or what it could be potentially. So this is the first year that we have this policy in place. So I kind of would like to take a step back and really address and assess with that, with maybe like a 20% increase. And again, we can always go back. I know this policy is saying going out 2 to 3 years, but this being the first year, just kind of maybe scaling it back a little bit. And I know I was told the packets go out in January, and they're supposed to be back by March. So I don't think many people are aware of like the increases that are going to be incurred if we pass this like the way it is. And some individuals may have, like a locker and then, other passes. So I just wanted to keep an open mind with how much we're going to increase it, and just for consistency. So those are my comments right now. And at this point, we can go to the public for any comments.
Evan, could I just put one more comment in? As far as the capital expenditures, we need to keep in mind that currently there is no replacement cost at all for any of the buildings, the parking lot, nothing. We haven't had anybody go out and do that, and I think it's really important that we do that because that number needs to be factored into the enterprise fund.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment about that as well? The fact of the matter is that if you look at the capital budget, because we have it over 5 years, 6 years actually, and what I was talking about before with regard to the amount of money that we're setting aside for disaster issues, we're going to hit that number this year, and they'll actually actually still have another $300,000 left over from what's in the budget, so that will stay in the enterprise fund. We also have I think it's $25,000 budgeted for next year, so that's also going to stay in the enterprise fund. So that's, I mean, it's not nothing. It's almost $500,000 that looked like we were going to spend over the next 2 years, and we aren't. So that just gives us a little bit more leeway as far as expenditures are concerned. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is Jill mentioned the storm, the last storm we had, but one of the things that we have to always also remember is that we do have the trust, we have funding from the trust, and we also generally, in certain circumstances, get reimbursement from FEMA, which I assume will continue to happen, although that might be questionable.
Right.
That's an excellent point.
Just want to keep those things in mind.
Right, so when we were, just to clarify that too, when we were talking about that, I did make sure that that number, when we decreased it, was okay because we haven't really had to fund anything, and we do, like Councilor Kopech mentioned,
Let's see how much it cost us
we
this last
saved a bunch
weekend.
of it. But we saved, I mean, we got saved $300,000.
Okay, all right, so any other councilmen? We'll come back to the council after we hear everybody from the public speak, anyone that wants to speak. At this point, just please raise your hand so I can call you up. Dr. Alba?
Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. I agree with Councilwoman Susan Cicilline Bonanno. I think she had outstanding points in regards to how much money do we need. 4.5 million appears to me well enough. We have insurance on these buildings. What's our deductible? FEMA funds would be available. Army Corps of Engineers will be available. We spent $140,000 on a beach carrying capacity study that was supported by Thomas Warren and Gail Scowcroft, who have cabanas, the luxury cabanas. And my question is, that was only increased 20%. So whoever put this together seems to be biased in favor of the cabana owners. So I don't know if this here was just an oversight, but we do need consistency. And I also feel it's called this Economics 101, a supply and demand curve. Supply and demand curve is where supply line crosses demand curve, and it's called equilibrium cost. When those are out of sync, then we should do something. We can see on our cabana waiting list, there's a huge demand. Yet, ironically, that was only increased 20%. Why? We also have the issue of, right now, individuals who have these cabanas, seems like they can keep them in perpetuity, which that too needs to be changed. So, I feel that we should not increase seasonal parking. I think it should stay the same. For the average person who uses the seasonal passes, some of them only might go several times throughout the summer. Also, I find it kind of ironic that we are trying to increase in pay for parking on the weekdays. I did my own walks on Narragansett Beach and along the beach wall this past summer. And I can assure you, virtually every day, with the exception of maybe one or two, those lots were 50% north and south lot were 50% empty. It's on tape. It's saved on YouTube. All of you can access it. So why are we just opening the south lot at 1 p.m. on weekdays only? The north lot is much larger, for one thing. Why are we trying to make life difficult for people who want to visit our beach and park their cars in a closer proximity to our beach? It makes no sense to me. Let's open up the north lot from the beginning of the time the beach is open.
Thank you.
To the
Your
end.
time's up.
Do we have only 30 seconds?
No, you went 4 seconds
3
over.
minutes?
You had 3 minutes and 4
3 minutes,
seconds.
that's it. This is like open forum. We have a time limit.
This is an agenda item, so you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, that's it. Okay, so I just want you to,
Your time is up.
you to make sure that we make the beach available for taxpayers. We don't price them out of wanting to go to our beach, because the sad reality is we don't need to have exclusionary policies. We should
Thank you.
have inclusionary policies for our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item? Ma'am?
My name is Cheryl Hartnett. I've worked at the Narragansett Town Hall. I've worked at the Narragansett Housing for 25 years, and I've been a non-resident facility holder for 27 years. Back in the day, I sent you all an email, so I didn't want to reiterate the things that I feel like I've done or haven't done. I thought back in November 2017, when we were coming to hopefully keep our non-facility, that we were grandfathered into keeping our non-facility. So our non-resident facility. So I was just a little bit surprised on Thursday when I found that this was an agenda item, and knowing that people had maybe Thursday and Friday, or it was posted on Wednesday, so Thursday and Friday, Monday was a holiday. So I was very surprised at it, and I haven't had a ton of time to do a lot of research, but I'm sure that you know all of the background. So I was just really here in support of keeping the people that you've grandfathered in that have had facility holders, whether they're even non-residents, that you might consider keeping us at South Pavilion. We, working in the town hall, we do a lot for the town, so we may not be residents of the town, but we certainly do support it. Worked for the Affordable Housing Corporation for many years, and I would like to think that I've done a lot for the town, so I really am feeling kind of slighted, I guess. So I really hope you might consider.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Ms. Siliberto?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. A lot of these increases fall upon the residents. And what you're failing to look at is what her plans are for these capital improvements. $250,000 to redo the Cabana parking lot is one of her proposals. Another is $300,000 to put a roof over the deck of the clubhouse. You really, instead of rubber stamping, she has capital improvement plans, really look at them. And that's what these raises are designed to cover. With some of these expenditures, I really have a problem with, frankly. But other than that, we are really at an unprecedented point here. The beach has never lost money. If you go way back when we bought the beach in 1938, first year I could find numbers was 1940, and we cleared $14,000 that year. We were still paying off the bond. Adjusted for inflation, that's $307,000. Conceivably, we should be making $307,000 a year, and we're not, because there's a lot of spending, in plain English, a lot of spending. And I don't think fees should be raised on the residents to cover spending unless you really take a close look at that spending. The commercial transferable pass, that is, boy, that's great. That's wonderful for the rental owners. I've sent you the numbers. Even if somebody used the one pass 35 times, we're losing $200 on each one of those passes. I added it all up, comes to $48,000 we're losing on conceivably, and that's just if the one pass is only used 35 times. We have a lot more than 35 beach days, let's face it, good beach days. I think that should be eliminated. As far as this list of fees here, I am totally opposed with raising the parking fee. I don't think the residents should be burdened anymore. It doesn't bother me. I can pay $750, but that's not the point. We just heard from Ms. Bonanno that 39% of the people in this town are housing cost stressed, and you want to add more. And it's really just not right. This is a town beach, believe it or not. I know people don't like to hear it, but it is a town beach, and I don't know that the town residents and taxpayers should be burdened the way that you're talking about burdening people. The parking, as far as the west lot and the south lot, I think you can open the south lot. We've tried that in the past, it didn't work, but I think in conjunction with the parking, the time parking at the seawall, you're gonna force people into the lot.
Ms. Siliberto, your time is up.
Okay. Let me just say one more thing. The facility rentals, the Cabana going to $3,000, absolutely not. This is a proposal by some deep-pocketed people who are trying to get people off the waiting list and discourage people from applying. and I'm totally opposed to going to that figure. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Avedisian.
How you doing? Dave Avedisian, Woodward Ave. We're all concerned that the families in this town are leaving. One of the things that families can afford are the beach. They can't afford homes, but they can afford the beach. Why are we trying to chase them out? Why are we short at the beach? Well, I think there's a simple way to solve this problem that's not debatable. Tie increases to the beach to either CPI, Consumer Price Index, or to the average inflation rate of 2023. Simple. Simple process, not debated. That's what it is. It's a simple number. And then apply the homestead exemption to full-time Narragansett residents. Transferable passes, this is where you get kids on the beach. I know some people don't like the ball playing on the beach, music on the beach, but as a high school teacher, it's great to have youth on the beach. It's what draws people to the beach. It's the reason why I'm here today, which some of you may not like, but I'm here today because as a kid from Cranston, I came to the beach. And it was easy to park on the beach or park in the side streets away from the beach. I was from Cranston, and I could park on the side streets. I'm from Narragansett today. I can't park on the side streets. If you want to sell more beach parking passes or beach parking spots, allow people who have the homestead exemption to park anywhere that has restricted resident parking telephone pole placards. Why can't I park there? I have a homestead exemption. You give me a tax break. You know I'm a full-time resident. You know I support the schools. I have a business in town. Why can't I park on any street in this town? It would then free up a spot in the parking lot so you could have someone else pay for that spot. As far as the SK residents, I do believe I was here at that meeting in 2017. I do believe that they should be grandfathered in. I think there should be a simple policy. Whatever my rate is, their rate should be twice mine. So if it costs me $400 for a locker, $300 for a locker, there should be twice that amount, said and done. If they want to pay it, they pay it. We should not be chasing them out, though. And lastly, I don't believe we have accurate numbers on the beach. It'd be a simple way to get accurate numbers on the beach. All the beach passes these days have barcodes on them. The kids at the gate should be scanning them. I scan my books in and out of the book room at the high school. They're hand scanners. They're relatively cheap and affordable. It'd be an accurate way of keeping numbers. It'd also be a way of preventing kids or anyone else who acts up on the beach from not getting in, because then you void their pass and they couldn't use it to get in. So I think there's other things we can be doing, but I do support transferable passes for the residents, for the people who have homestead exemptions, because it's my friends, my family, my kids' friends and family that should be able to get on the beach, and that price should not be ridiculous either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else from the public wishing to speak. Okay, so we'll come back to the council now. We can go over, just based on everyone's feedback, and we can go over, what I was going to plan to do is go over each section, and then we can kind of come to a consensus, and then make a motion to either accept, amend the fee policy. So the first section, to get a general consensus from the council, is the resident taxpayer passes. There were no changes to any of those other than parking, which the parking was going up from $50 to $75 with the last parking increase in 2011, which went from $40 to $50. I'll go to the council, Councilor Kopech.
I kind of like Dave's idea of the CPI, using the Consumer Price Index and the homestead exemption in conjunction with one another for making this decision, so I just wanted to make that point straight out. I'm still not clear on whether or not we are breaking even with what we're doing, with the revenue that we're taking in now, and if we are, I don't see any major point in raising that fee. So, but I don't know the answer to that. So.
Okay. Councilor Lawler.
Yes or no, a lightning around?
No,
doing it
just-
on the first one, is that what we're doing, going around?
Yeah.
to-
We're gonna, yeah, yes,
Going
I'm
your
leading
way,
this meeting,
Susan.
so I'm going to go by each section. There's not many sections, so I
What
would like to,
suggest,
yeah.
one at a time, 'cause they're gonna have
Not
to
line by
executive-
line, but section by section. So,
Changes.
yeah. Council Lawler, for the first section, resident taxpayer passes.
So for the passes, we're making no choices, any changes on those, but for the parking, I believe we should keep it at the 50 and not increase it.
Okay. Councilor Flamerandi, this section, resident taxpayer passes, including the parking pass.
I'd like to keep that at the $50 also.
Councilor Cecilia Bonanno,
No on both.
no on what?
On the 50 to the 75,
So do you want to keep it at 50?
I want to keep it at 50.
Okay. Okay, so everything else is the same. So I would also support keeping that the same. So again, this is the first year that we're addressing it with the enterprise fund goal. So with that, so we can all agree, it seems like everything except we're keeping all the fees the same, including the parking pass. For the next, we'll move on to the daily parking. So the suggestion is to basically increase the weekday parking from $10 to $15, which would make it consistent with the weekend parking. So that would be $15 daily. Councilor Kopech.
Well, one of the things that I looked at was what kind of revenue we got last year and to some extent the year before. I don't think they're exactly the same thing, but we actually had less revenue last year in terms of the daily parking. So I think Dr. Alba made the point that, when you're talking about economics, you have the concept of supply and demand, and if we don't have the demand, increasing the cost of the supply might have the exact opposite impact that we're looking for. So I would say I would leave it alone, or come up with a way to at least, at least charge if we could use credit cards only, just make sure we charge the fee. That would be the only thing.
Councilor Lawler.
So we need to offset the money somehow. We're not going to be charging the 75 for the parking pass. We just all agreed to keeping it at 50. So I would go with the rec director's recommendation of $20 for both weekends and holidays.
Like different from here. So just to clarify.
Well, no, what I said, the rec director's recommendation was for 20. So I would like to go along with what she had recommended.
Okay, so you're totally changing from this. Okay, so with the $5 increase during the week, just to kind of, I'm going to take a step back. So just when I was going through the numbers, changing it to $5 during the week increases the revenue, the annual revenue by $45,000. And previously we had already discussed not changing the resident parking from $50 to $75, but that would have generated $116,000. So we're trying to make sure that we kind of come up with that gap. So obviously, just discussing money in, money out, just keeping that in mind. Okay, so Councilor Ferrandi, daily parking.
This one, I mean, usually a lot of the other beaches, it's always more on the weekends or a holiday. So, it's a little something different with both the same price. I know we need to come up a little bit because we're losing some revenue with the other one anticipated. So I'm for a modest increase of maybe 20% on that, either one. Just to kind of make up some of that, that's where I would be at. I mean, if it stayed at the 10, I'd be fine with it, but I mean, I think I just agree with Jill a little bit about, not losing the revenue. We need to make it up somewhere.
I think, right, so the 10 and 15, it has to do with, just the money, I guess. But I also agree with Councilor Kopech, where I would like to see electronic cash. I don't really carry cash either, so. But anyway, so I know last year the recommendation, or the last time we discussed this, it was like a lot higher. It was 20, if I recall correctly. So this was just a slight increase. So yes or
Can I
no
make
for
a
the
point about this? I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'm sorry.
Can I just make a point about this? If I remember correctly, daily parking has an impact on residents who don't have annual parking passes. So the other point there is that if we have folks who don't have annual parking passes and they want to park and they are Narragansett residents, this could be, I mean, it's $15 for parking, it's $10 per person, so we're, if there's 2 adults in the car, we're talking about $35 plus, teenagers. I mean, it gets pretty pricey on a daily basis if you don't have the wherewithal to get the parking pass that's annual, but you do go to the beach several times a year. So, I mean, I think we have to kind of remember that too, that this doesn't just affect people from out of town. This affects Narragansett residents as well.
But I think that what the example you just gave, Deb, is the exception, not the rule. I mean, it really is.
But we don't know that, do we?
Well, we could find out. I like the idea of scanning the pass, because we could also know if it's legit pass they're using too.
Well, that's true. That also was a good idea.
I don't think we can implement that this year, but that's definitely something that we can look, it should be a goal.
We should be scanning everything.
Okay, Councilor Cicely Bonanno.
No, I don't want an increase. New.
Okay. Okay, so that's $160,000 that was kind of budgeted here for to kind of cover the, the $320,000 that we need to kind of cover for this year. So that's half of it. So then the other, sounds like the general consensus is not increasing it. And then we do, like,
I think Steve and I both want to increase it. I mean, we need to make the money up. You make a great point, Eva. If we're not going to be raising it, the reason that we wanted to, the rec board recommended an increase in the parking fee of $75 was to make up revenue. But if we're not going to do that, there's $25 that we need to make up someplace. So to make it up on the daily parking seems to be a pretty appropriate place to make it up.
Or the commercial transferable pass.
I think we need to do something more with that.
I do too. But that would also make up some of that.
okay, so there's no, yeah, so I mean, we have to, we're like trying to assess, okay, so I'm going to come back to that just because there's
No,
just
but I
maybe.
just want to be understanding, so there's no consensus for the increase, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I just kind of, we have to.
So maybe well,
I'm going to move on to daily admission right now. We'll come back to the daily parking because, again, we haven't increased anything right now. And so it's, we're trying to maintain the beach with the funding that we take in versus the expenses. We have to think about that. I mean, it's great not to have to increase anything. Nobody wants to, but sometimes you have to make those hard choices. So daily admission, so this is the commercial transferable pass. This is a limit of 5 per household. It's $200 is the fee for that. No increases on that. And then we also have the resident taxpayer transferable pass limit, which is $100. Councilor Kopech.
I could see raising, if you wanted to make up the difference, and I don't know the exact numbers, so I'd have to see the math, but if we want to make up the difference from not raising the parking pass fee, commercial transferable would be a good place. Joe's made the point that we need to check something out, thank you, with our solicitor, and so maybe what we do is we also just hold off on the weekday change until we can find out about the commercial transferable pass. If we can increase that and the numbers work, then I think we have just a better solution than not doing that.
Okay, so
So
you're
my-
suggesting the daily parking as well as the,
I would say that we leave daily parking alone and that we look at the commercial transferable pass, but that we have to, that we pull both of them just to see what the relationship between the two would be if we increase the commercial transferable pass. What the revenue would be from that versus the revenue that we would have gotten from the daily parking. The
Okay.
increase to the daily parking. I hope that's clear.
I understand what you're saying. Councilor Waller.
I think that I would like to have the solicitor look at the commercial transferable pass, and I would be in favor of a slight increase for the resident transferable pass from 100 to 125. And remember, that's for every single day that the beach is open. Anybody that they choose to use that pass on can use that pass.
Counselor for Randy.
Yeah, I've got a question on the actual commercial transferable pass. Is that, if I can get my question answered from Jim or the recreation advisor, how do they determine who's allowed to get a commercial transferable pass? Is it out-of-state persons, in-state persons? Does anybody know the background on it?
The residential transferable for the residents
Right.
is limited to 5 right now. On the commercial ones, Michelle, do you have the paperwork on that?
Thank you.
Deb, I thought that was a great solution to make up the money.
Good evening. So to answer your question, 220 commercial transferable passes were sold this season for a revenue of $44,000. So if we take that 220 and times it by, say, $300 for a new commercial transferable pass, that would put us at $66,000. Again, the increase for the resident seasonal parking pass was hoping to generate $116,000. So that's where we are with that.
Michelle, I
But
think
I-
asked, I don't
Yeah,
want to, he asked a different question. He wants to know what it is, like.
So
Yeah,
the
in other
commercial
words, who-
transferable pass is for a resident taxpayer who owns another property in town and wishes to buy 5 passes for that home for their renters throughout the summer, and those passes are $200 apiece. Now, that person can also be a full-time resident in town and can get an additional 5 resident transferable passes for their main property, their home in town.
So the parameters aren't that it has to be a rental property or anything like that? It's not like that at all? It's just for a second homeowner that has 4 houses, 5, in other words, can...
No,
and
sir,
own-
it has to be listed as a rental.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
what I'm
rental
trying to
fee
get
has-
at.
Has to be paid, yes, it's a commercial property,
So
sir.
these would be residences that are listed on the rental registration list? Check
Correct,
with it.
correct.
Okay, right.
They're listed as a rental, and we check that when the people come in to buy these passes.
And they have to own one other property in town, or no?
Well, they're a taxpayer. They're a taxpayer, so no, they don't have to own another property,
Okay,
no.
that's what not, that's, before it was said that they could own a property. I don't want to make sure one doesn't go with the other, and it could be just, someone could own the property here, rent it all the time, and buy these passes, and not live
Correct.
in the town.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get at. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Sicilian Bonanno.
I agree with Deb Kopak that we should make up the lost revenue on the commercial transferable.
Oh, that's a lot. So that, again, if it was,
Counselor Cicilline Bonanno, can you talk into the mic? We
Yeah,
can't hear you.
sorry. I'm freezing. I agreed with the commercial, looking into increasing the price on the commercial transferable. I don't want to do the daily. I think, I don't want to have any impact on the residents, so I'd rather do the rental commercial pass to increase.
are you talking
make
from the resident park? So so with none of those changes, we're 160,000. So as Michelle mentioned, as Ms. Kershaw mentioned, that just raising it, because it's not that many compared to the resident taxpayer passes. So she stated that from 44,000 to basically 60,000. So it's not, it's really just doing
That's if you
20,000
only go
more.
to 300.
Yeah, and
You could
then,
go to higher than 300.
We could.
Okay.
I think to have Mark look at it would be the most appropriate thing.
okay, so with that, so I do have a quick question for Ms. Kershaw. Is 2 weeks going to make a difference if we, so it seems like there's a lot of questions and a lot of, we need to get a lot of answers and work it through. We know we need to get to a certain point because we want to make sure that, we have enough revenue coming in with all these fees. I understand that the packets are sent out in January and they need to be back by March. if we continued it, because it actually has to be all finalized, right? So the packets go out, so when you send it out, you can't just send some of them out now and some of them out in a couple weeks. Is it going to make a difference if we get kind of all the math done in the next 2 weeks and then come back with more of a finalized plan? I think a lot of the council members just saw this on Thursday, and this is one of the big issues that we usually have to deal with on the council because the beach is very important to a lot of our residents.
So the critical issue that we face now with this agenda is with respect to the facility fees. The
Okay.
other fees can wait.
Okay.
We have time
That's fair
for that, but it is critical that we have a decision on the fees for cabanas, North Pavilion changing rooms, and South Pavilion lockers, because that we need to know as soon as possible to make changes in our system and get the packages ready to be distributed the third week in January.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Eva, can I make a suggestion?
Yep.
That maybe, since we have a bit of differing of what we should do with daily parking charges, maybe we could have Michelle do the math for us and the finance director, and at the next meeting, come back and let us know. Because you're right, we need to make up that $116,000 someplace. So that would be a great way for us to be able to see what the realization is for what we are charging and how much we can make that revenue back.
Yeah, so I think that's the route that we're going to go. It seems like there's a lot of it doesn't seem too much consensus, so I just wanted to make sure we have consensus amongst the council. I know there's some varying ideas. We want to make sure that we cover the costs, like the ins and the outs. So I'm just going to move forward with the facility leasing fees, as Ms. Kershaw mentioned. It's critical that we get this squared away, at least at this meeting. So we're going to focus on that, and then we'll...
Excuse me, Eva,
yes.
can I just say one more comment about, since,
Sure.
she may be
Oh, I'm sorry.
reworking some
Yeah.
things, if that's okay. I'd like to see if they would also, instead of, raising the commercial transferable pass, consider eliminating it. And I don't know if there's a way of finding out how many of all of those transferable passes have been used. But that would be one more beach revenue to get into the beach. So rather than look at it as far as raising that to make up the money, maybe if you didn't have it at all, you'd get more in beach revenue and entrance fees.
That's one of the things that Mark can look into
Yeah.
it for us, yes.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that's in there.
Thank you. Thanks. We'll make sure that. Okay. Any other comments about this before we move on to what we really need to focus on for this meeting, which is the facility leasing fees, which include the cabana, changing rooms, and lockers. So the recommendation, again, the cabanas have not been, the rate has not been increased since 2014. They did undergo that renovation not that many years ago. So the recommendation for the fees is going up from $2,500 to $3,000, and that is a 20% increase. So that is $500. So council members, Councilor Kopech.
So one of the issues that I have with this is that we did spend, I think it was about $2.1 million on the cabanas, and now we're talking about a couple $100,000 to redo the parking lot, which is used also for the clubhouse. But I think that since it's got a unique, that area has its own unique utilization, that it should be paying for itself. And I don't think I think the amount of money that is charged on an annual basis is used to cover the cost of maintaining those places in each given year. So again, if you want to consider this a business, I don't. I always say it's more like a nonprofit organization because the objective is not to make money. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to cover your costs, that was a cost that was not covered. And so in my mind, and there hasn't been an increase since 2014, I could see raising the cabanas even more than 20%. I could see a 30% increase.
Councilor Lawler.
You're a super fan out there today, Deb.
Either that or Al's in a really good mood.
One of those two. I am fine with the cabanas at 3,000.
Counselor Ferrandi?
Yeah, I have no comment on this one.
Counselor Sicilian Bonanno?
I'm on the waiting list. I did call the ethics. I don't have to recuse myself on any vote on it because I'm not making personal money on it. So I'm just going to throw out a couple ideas for the cabanas because sometimes people want to increase, not increase. I would like to have the town look at a cabana usage policy. Every single day I go to the beach, and every single day that lot's empty too. And I think people are holding those and not really utilizing them. So I would like them to look at that. I think an increase is helpful, but I also think they need to be used, and they're just not being used the way they used to be.
Okay, there's a recommendation to develop a subcommittee to evaluate policy.
I don't
So,
agree with that, though.
okay, so, well, I think, again, 2014 was the last time, 20% increase. I'm going to agree with that increase. So it sounds like there's consensus there. So the cabanas, and then the next is the North Pavilion Changing Room. This is a proposed increase from $700 to $1,000. Counselor Kopech.
Well, I'm going to go back to your original 20% idea, because this one is actually increased by 33%. The cabanas were 20%, and the South Pavilion lockers are 43%, which is, I mean, you can look at it in terms of it's not a lot of money, but the fact of the matter is we should have some consistency here. So I would say, that probably should be 20%.
Counselor Lawler.
I like the word consistency, so let's do the 20%.
Counselor Ferrandi. Thank you.
Fine with the 20%.
Counselor Bonanno.
Me as well.
Okay, so that would mean 840. So 700 to 840, that's a 20% increase. We're being consistent with the cabana and North Beach, the North Pavilion Changing Room. So next, we'll move on to the South Pavilion lockers. That is, last increase was 2014, as previously mentioned. On this one, it just looked like the resident rate went up from 350 to 500, which is higher than the 20%. The 20% would be 420. Counselor Kopech.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is there a reason why the non-resident rate didn't go up?
That's what I asked as well.
Well, that's, I don't know. So we were going to see if we could just increase that as
Yeah, I
well,
would-
if there's an increase for the resident rate.
Okay, so when we get to that,
Yep. Counselor Lawler.
20%.
I would agree with the 20%. And to answer the question, I did have a chance to speak to Mr. Lynch, the chair of the rec board today, and I asked the question, why had the non-resident not been increased? And his response was because they were not going to be having the changing rooms, this will be their last year. They felt that we could remain the same, but I do believe when we get there that I'd like to have the 20% increase there as well. And Cheryl, thank you for all you've done. You certainly have done a whole lot, but if we start opening it up to exceptions, then we have people asking us for, people that may no longer live in town that are retirees, and we have to draw it someplace. But you had a good run, 28 years, good for you.
Counselor Ferrandi.
I'm okay with the 20% in each of those.
Counselor Sicilian Bonanno.
I am as well.
Okay, so 20%. I actually-
20% is the 420, right?
420, and then
So-
I guess we could just, it sounds like already everyone's saying the 20% for the non-resident would be 720. I actually would like to see, I know just to grandfather town employees. I don't know if anyone else is open to that. I know that's,
I think it just opens cans of worms.
I'd actually be open to that.
is anyone else open to, because there was a recommendation to grandfather everyone, and I know, there are town employees that do.
In the past, we've talked about that, but then it's like they're not resident. We
Right.
tried to have
It's a
South
tough one.
Kingston, and it does get kind of complicated.
It does.
It's like a,
Susan and I are agreeing tonight. This is great.
yeah, that's a rare moment. but
Twice in
it's-
one
Yeah, look
year.
at that.
so-
I mean, I tried to do a reciprocal path with South Kingston.
That was a
lynched.
tough
Yeah,
year.
that was tough. That was tough. So I don't know. I think it's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
Councilor Ferrandi.
What was it?
So the question
you wanted
is,
grandfather? Say it.
so there's a couple, there's also, we have to, there were some recommendations, and one of them was to actually, Or was it?
Sunset.
Number
the-
3, where it says grandfathering.
Yeah, so number 3, in addition to modifications for established 2024 as last year for grandfathering non-residents for South Pavilion lockers. And we do have some town employees who do have had those, and so it's just the consensus of the council.
Well, remember, they're not town employees. They work in town hall, so there's a difference. But that's where you start having lots of different
Isn't the policy
exceptions.
that if once the non-resident gives up the, not the cabana, but in
That's
this
what it
case,
is
That's what it is now,
then they
correct.
That's what it
don't
is
get back
now.
in. So if they can keep it, then they'll stay.
But there's a new policy, there's a policy change in this,
Yeah, it says,
item.
so this would be the last year, everybody that has
Correct.
one of those would be out.
Yes.
No time,
Yep.
time limit in or whatever, over a time, just one.
We can't, I mean, we can't treat different groups specially. We just can't.
Yeah, so right now it's getting reduced by attrition, if any, every year.
Right.
Has it been going down at all?
No, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's
I would consider it.
We have
consider
to
this.
decide.
Consider what, Steve?
Well, you're saying about town employees.
Yeah.
They're not grandfathered in? Or
That they would be. So I'm
we're
saying
gonna
I'd be
not-
open to it, and then Counselor
So maybe we
Lawler
should,
saying
maybe we
confused
should
with
get a
that.
legal ruling on this one too, but not, it's not going to happen now. So leave it at, I don't think.
So just leave it as is, like, meaning,
But I mean, as far as the grandfathering thing is concerned, maybe we need to bring that up at another time.
okay, we'll bring that up at another time. Okay.
It's getting confusing because you threw that in. So can you just review, we're looking at the policy where they were grandfathered in, right?
We decided that we're going 20%, so basically, the consensus recommendation of the council is changing the facility leasing fees, increasing them by 20% by each category. So every fee here is going to go from the 2023 fee to the 2024 fee is going to increase by 20%, which means the cabana is going to stay the same. The North Beach changing room is going to go from $700 to $840. The South Pavilion lockers, the residents are going to go from $350 to $420, and then the non-residents are going to go from $600 to $720. So that's consistent across the board.
Got that.
And so the only thing I was bringing in, because it was mentioned as one of the other policy recommendations, was to the grandfathering, and I was throwing in the exception for town employees, but it doesn't sound like there's a consensus for that. So we'll just leave it as that, what it was previously. So we'll go to the Canachet North Beach Clubhouse rental fees. I'm fine with the way they are. I think there was a recommendation for changing the town employee, but I'll let anyone
The very
speak to that. But Councilor Kopak, are you okay with these rental fees?
Yes.
And Councilor Lawler?
I'm fine with them, with the exception of the very last one, nonprofit/town employee rate for the 3-hour event, having them be the same rate, the nonprofit as a town employee as $300. I feel it would be more than fair to have the town employees have the resident rate of $400 for Monday through Thursday and $500 Friday through Sunday, but not the same as a nonprofit.
But we're keeping the nonprofit, just taking it,
Yes.
okay. So, okay. Councilor Ferranti?
There's a few, they're fairly consistent. There's a few here that are increased by like 60%, even high, 66%, but I guess, most of them are around 40 to 50.
No, they're not.
The resident from Friday through Sunday went from $750 to $1,200. That's a 60% increase, up $450. The others are like 28 and 30 before that. I'm just trying to think if it's.
Yeah, I think a lot of these fees were very, very low, and they haven't been increased since 2010. So I think anything that's on here, I think is very reasonable, given the fact that it hasn't been raised in 14 years. And I think it's a good deal. It's like waterfront, and it's a beautiful facility, and it has been upgraded.
And it's a good way for us to recap that cost, that we're trying to keep the burden off the town residents.
So you're going to take it as an aggregate, every one of them, where they stated, okay.
Yes, yeah, so I'm just
Yeah, I'm fine
basically
with it.
looking at this document saying yes or no.
My no doesn't matter, but I don't want to increase them. Right, it doesn't matter because you guys have consensus for that, right?
You don't want to increase any of it?
No.
Okay. Your comments do matter, but there's,
I'm just
but it
saying there
sounds like,
was
no, it does.
consensus
No,
to
but the
increase it.
consensus is to increase.
Well,
So-
can I just say something about that? I mean, I've been on the Towers Committee for 3 years, and they go through and evaluate, increases on a regularly scheduled basis, and it's based, it's based on, costs, et cetera. And these, the North Beach Clubhouse has the same basic reason for being as the Towers does. And I think, actually, I've said this before, I think, all of these buildings should run the same way. But there are changes that happen financially, and I think that it makes sense to raise the fees.
Okay, so just as a synopsis of these fees, what I'm hearing is that the fees that the facility leasing fees were going to be increased by 20%. The Canachet North Beach Clubhouse rental fees will be increased as enclosed with the fee schedule there. Do I have, and then we're going to hold off, we'll continue the other fee discussion, which is for the beach fees. Does somebody want to make a motion to amend that?
Sure, but the one change with that, Eva, is having the town employee rate be the same as the town resident rate for
Okay,
the
yep,
3-hour
so you
event.
can, okay. So we would just need a motion to approve the Narragansett facility licensing fees and the Canachet North Beach Clubhouse rental fees with the change in the Canachet North Beach Clubhouse rental fees to just move the town employee rates up to the resident rates. And that would be the only change in that fee section. And then to continue the discussion for the other fees, which are the beach fees, the resident tax, the other fees, seasonal beach fees, to the next meeting, which is
Well, I believe we have consensus on
The
the parking,
15th.
keeping the parking at $50. And then also the 20% for the,
I was just thinking we could just do it all together. So it's,
do you want me to give
You
a
need to
shot?
set, Janet.
I'd suggest that you do separate motions for at least the two that you have here for the chart. Do a separate motion for the continue. And if you wanted to approve any of the parking, you could make a motion to approve those parking. Because you have different votes on them. That it's not just consensus. You've got somebody who agrees on some of the fees and some of them not.
so the fees that we have, see, we had the, okay, so we'll just, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the fees? We'll do it in two separate motions. So I just need a motion for the Canachet North Beach Clubhouse and the facility leasing fees. Can't be me making the motion, so.
I'll give it a shot. I'll make a motion to approve the Canachet North Beach Clubhouse rental fees as written, with the exception of changing the town employee 3-hour event rate to the same rate as resident rate, rather than having it be the nonprofit rate. And also, the motion would also including approving a 20% increase in Cabana, North Pavilion changing room, and South Pavilion lockers.
That's not what you wanted.
They should be two separate motions.
Just
Oh, sorry.
do one at a time.
Yeah, just do one at a time. So the first one you had was good.
All right, so, all right, the first one I had was good, so. Anybody want to second that? For this, that would again be the Canachet North Clubhouse fees.
I'll second it.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
No.
it 3-2?
You said no? Okay. Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 3-2. Next up,
So Janet, so now that we'll do the beach parking fee? Which one?
Now you do the 20% increase.
the facility.
Facility
leasing
leasing
fees.
fees.
All right, facility leasing fees by 20% for the Cabana, north changing rooms, the South Pavilion lockers, and also increasing the 20% for the non-residents.
Second. If that was a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. That you can take a stab at the daily and seasonal beach fees.
So the only one that we agreed on consensus is to maintain the parking at the $50 rate.
Right.
So make a motion to maintain the resident parking at $50.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Lawler, Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. So then we need a motion to continue to the January 16th meeting, the 2023 daily and seasonal beach fees, with the exception of the parking.
And also including the transferable pass for commercial.
Yeah.
So daily and seasonal passes, it's included in that section. So it minus
So-
the
So it's just
daily,
that section.
yeah, minus the parking for the resident passes. Did you make that motion?
All right, so the motion is all, everything in that column, so we're going to make the motion to maintain the $50 parking for a resident, also do we didn't come, what Janice look at me like, what?
Oh, I thought you were doing well.
I thought so too. But, what?
So we need a motion to continue to the next meeting, the 2023 daily and seasonal beach fees, with the exception of, obviously, we just approved the parking to stay the same.
Including the transferable passes for commercial and residential.
That's part of
all
that.
part of
So it would be,
So just say so.
yeah, and then we'll defer it to our
Okay.
solicitor for that. So,
Do you
okay.
have that, Janet?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second? Who was the second?
$50
Is staying.
is staying.
Yes.
Right.
And then
Everything else is
and
going to
everything
be
else on there is
continued.
being continued
Correct.
until the
Right.
16th.
Right.
First and a second.
Okay,
Making
so
the
you're going to
motion.
move that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Do we have to go back to the main motion as amended, or do we have, that doesn't need to happen now, right? Sounds like we have. We're already finished. Ms. Tara, are we all set with this? Can we move on? Can I move on? Yeah.
It's like, move
That
on.
was painful. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so next, moving on to the engineering department, we have a motion to approve, ratify, and confirm change order number 9 with E.W. Berman Incorporated for the Maury Luntjens Memorial Library renovation project in the amount of $27,679.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council?
Jim, can you just review, please?
This motion is consistent with, which was detailed to the council in open sessions and in emails, regarding that all change orders, they would be approved within the town's, within the authority of the town to do before delay, so it wouldn't delay the projects. All these were reviewed by the town's project manager, Keo Construction, and the project architect, and reviewed by engineering, and then finally approved by me. The purpose of putting these on the approve, ratify, confirm is so that there are no delays in the project and the necessary work gets done and/or credited, because there's a variety of different ones that are involved in this change order.
And it's all staying on budget.
It says
There you go.
the contract cost with this change order will be $5,696,751.
Correct. And the funding would be from the bond, the professional services, and the library donation account.
Any other questions for the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Okay, let's see. So motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the fire department, we have a motion to approve the purchase of 15 gear lockers, 2 gear washer extractors, and 3 gear dryers for the fire department from MES Shipments Fire Equipment Company pursuant to Sourcewell contract pricing in the total amount of $78,048.98.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public?
I just want to make the point, this is grant funded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, from the fire department, we have a motion to approve the purchase of 1 Lucas 3 chest compression system and 1 Star Pro model star chair for the fire department from Stryker Medical, formerly Physio Control Incorporated, in the amount of $19,896.52.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to approve the purchase of miscellaneous firefighter gear from MES Shipment Fire Equipment Company Incorporated pursuant to Sourcewell contract pricing in the total amount of $17,325.08.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, from the town clerk's office, we have a motion to reappoint Rick McQuarrie to the Finance Committee as an alternate member for a term to expire December 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the
I'd
public?
just like to recommend that we reappoint Rick McCory.
Okay, that's the motion, so, okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
Oh, is it?
Aye.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Just want to be sure.
I know, it's usually not like that. So motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, from the town clerk's office, is a motion to appoint/reappoint 4 individuals to the Land Conservancy Trust for a 3-year term to expire on January 1st, 2027. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to make a
hold on one second,
recommendation for
sorry.
reappointments.
Hold on. Sorry, so this is, so there's a couple reappointments that we can do, and then there's also 3 applications on file. So we can do the reappointments, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint David Avedisian and Thomas Hoagland to the committee, to the.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion from the council?
Did you second?
I did
Yeah.
second it.
Yeah, they're already serving. It's just a second term.
Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm going to, I lost the word.
Abstain,
Abstain, just
Okay.
to make sure.
Yep.
everything's clear.
because there is a relationship.
Yes, because
Okay.
there's a relation.
So this, so we have a motion to approve the reappointment of both Thomas Hoagland for 1 term and David Avedisian, who served 1 term. Motion by Councilor Cicilline Bonanno, second by Councilor Kopek, 4 yes and 1 abstention. Councilor Kopek abstained. And then next up, do we have any, do we have a motion to appoint, any discussion? So we'll go with discussion, any nominations for there's 2 open positions.
I'd like to make a motion for Deborah Ryan.
So we'll just discuss, just nominate, so who would you like to nominate?
Deborah Ryan.
And I'd like to nominate Terry Fleming.
Okay.
Deborah Ryan.
Okay, we've got Deborah Ryan. Anyone else?
And Terry Fleming.
I think they're both good choices. We have 2 slots to fill.
Is everyone in agreement? Okay, does
Sure.
somebody want to
There
make
is
a motion to
Says 1
appoint?
here, okay.
This too.
Okay, somebody would,
A motion to appoint Terry Fleming and Deb Ryan.
To the land trust.
To the land trust.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Lastly, we have an executive session. We have a motion to retire to executive session of the Town Council in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-4 and 42-46-5A for the purpose of collective bargaining to discuss the labor negotiations for Local 1589 International Association of Firefighters pursuant to 42-46-5A2. I'll do a motion to retire.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I need a roll call.
Deb Kopek, aye.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Steve Ferranti, aye.
Susan Cicilline Bernardo, aye.
Eva Jersey, aye. Motion passes 5-0. We'll be back for disclosure of executive session votes after our executive session. Okay, we just returned from executive session. This is the closure of executive session votes. We had a motion to seal, motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopak. Motion passed 5-0. Then we had a motion to exit and reconvene into the regular meeting. Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopak. Motion passed 5-0. Lastly, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopak. Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned. Thank you.